Hi everyone, and welcome to the beginning of our alphabetical series of flowers. This is going to be done in hourly chunks on YouTube, and they'll be labelled as such, episode 1, episode 2, whatever. So however far we get in an hour, that's how far we get. Our flower that we're doing is Alstroemeria. It's not the easiest of flowers. I'm not exactly certain why I chose it, to be honest. There's a lot of detail in it, but it's a good tester. Let's see where we get to it. First thing we need to do really is this has got it is as I traced it, so it's got a lot of graphite on there. Thank you. This is our Alstroemeria actual flower, reference flower, and I knew that it was going to change, and I knew that I wasn't going to get it painted before it started to go over. So I took loads and loads of photographs, and I am actually, although I have this, I am working from a photograph. That way then I know that it's going to always look like that. But for reference of how the leaves join onto the stem, how the stem splits into the smaller parts for each flower, I've got this. And if I really need to, I've got a magnifying glass that I can really look at it and see what's going on there. And I would advise, if possible, that you always paint from nature. It's much more vibrant than a photo will ever be, and give you so many more clues than you get on a sort of flat photo. If, however, you are using a photograph, I would recommend that you use it on your digital device, be that a phone, an iPad, MacBook, whatever it is, because it's much brighter. You get a truer representation of the colours to paint from. Whereas when you print it off, depending on how good your printer is, but generally it deadens the colours somewhat, and it makes it, not so interesting and not so easy to paint from either. So there's our reference when we get to the point where we need to be looking at things. I'm just going to pop that back into water just now. And the graphite on here, we need to really be getting rid of a bit of that graphite. A really good way of doing it, and it's a tip that I got from Billy Shoel, is to use some this is a bit grummy, clean bit of blue tack. This is pink tack, but it's blue tack, if you know what I mean. And it picks up all the sort of loose graphite. Now you don't want to remove it all, because then you won't see what you're painting, but just the loose stuff. So just roll it in your hand and pick up the loose stuff, still leaving plenty so you can see what you're painting. I should have taken note of the time, and then I know when I've been rabbiting on for an hour. 3.5 minutes so far. So you see, it just takes away the real loose stuff that's likely to get involved with your paint when you put your paint on, and of course make it harder to rub out when we come to rub out the pencil. So just roll that over your entire tracing, or if you've done a sketch, all the better, but you still need to really get rid of the loose graphite. But as I say, don't go mad. Leave yourself enough that you can see where you're going. So yeah, I'm quite happy with that. That's fine. I need to leave it possibly slightly heavier than I would if I was painting myself, because I want you to be able to see what I'm up to. So the next thing then is to mix our colours, and today I'm going to concentrate on the flowers. So I need to mix up some really bright pinks, and they are really vibrant. So I've chosen to put out on the palette already Opera Pink, which really is vibrant. It's the most vibrant. I've put Rose Madder Permanent out, and I've put Quinacridone Rose out as well. I've also put a little bit of French ultramarine because there are places in the flowers where it goes over that they just have a slight purple cast to them. So if I add a little bit of blue to that, I'll get that purpley cast. The flower also goes down the centre of each of the sort of petals, if you like, has got a green. It's more than a cast, they are green. So we need to mix some greens up as well so we can get on that. So let's see what we can mix up. I advise that you have a piece of scrap paper. Similar, if not identical, would be perfect to the paper that you're going to be working on. And we'll mix the colours up to what we think is correct. Then hold it up to the reference, be it your live reference or your digital reference, and make sure that it's a good match for it. So using your mixing brush, don't use your best brushes for this.
Should take you off.
Yeah, and take me off. Don't use your really good watercolour brushes for mixing paint because the ends will get splayed and you just ruin them and they're too expensive. So I'm just using an old acrylic brush. It's really old and sad, but it does this job very well. So to start with, let's go for the bright one. So there's, I mean, look how bright that opera pink is. It's a bright one, but our flowers are bright, so you know, and we need quite a fair sized puddle of this. And I'm just going to mix in the tiniest little bit of rose madder into that. Just tone it down a touch, but not much, maybe a little bit more. Okay, so I think that's not too bad for the very vibrant bits. So I'm just going to paint a little bit on there and let's see how close we are. Well, I think that it needs to be slightly bluer. It's got a slightly bluer cast to it. So I'm just going to pick up the tiniest bit of French ultramarine and mix that through it. You can see instantly the effect that's had. But I think that might give us the colour we're after. Yeah, that's great. That's the colour. That's what we're after. So it might help you at this stage, if you're a beginner, to jot down what I'm using, what I'm mixing to get these colours. Even if you are a more experienced painter, it may help you to jot down what you've used for this mix, because you go away, you come back tomorrow, what did I mix? And you can't get it again. So this is mainly opera rose, opera pink as it's called in Daniel Smith land, a wee bit of rose madder permanent and a touch of French ultramarine, and that's giving us that really nice colour. I don't need at this stage to use that quinacridone rose. That's a bit of a darker colour and I actually don't think I need that at the moment. So let's take a bit of this away and water that down considerably. It was a much lighter hue. So that's it. We've got our dark pink, we've got our light pink. The other thing that we need to address are the greens. There are two ways of sort of approaching this. I could put all the pink in and then come back and do the green. You know, nothing wrong with doing that. That way then your pink and your greens don't merge, because if you put them both together wet, they're going to merge together and you're going to get a colour that is muddy. So I think the first thing to do probably is put the pinks in, and then when they are dry, we'll come back and put the greens in. So let's sort out the brushes, see what we need. There's quite large areas of these, but I'm one of these people, I like the control of a smaller brush. So I think I will use this 4 round. I have got a 4 sabre round as well. These are Daleroni brushes in the Aquafine range, and they do sable a sable round and the ordinary round. Frankly, for me, I prefer just the ordinary one, not the sable one. Although the sable one is excellent at lifting out. I like the snap that you get with the bristles with just the round. So that's what I'll be using, but I may come to the sable ones just for some lifting out. I'm just seeing if I've got what else I've got in the sable. I've got 6, nothing smaller, 5, that's an odd size. Yeah, so let's see where we get to. So the first thing to do then, we're going to do this a wet and wet technique, which is where you dampen your paper, moisten your paper where you're going to flood with paint, making your paper wet. So that's one wet, and the other wet is your paint. So let's get cracking. Make sure that brush is clean. Right, so we'll start over on this side, and I'm looking at it on my laptop. So all you're doing is painting with water, and that little bit that's sticking up there, oh, that's a biro, is actually the back of a leaf. So I'm just going to paint that in, draw that in, so we know that we don't have to cover that in water. In fact, we don't want to cover that in water. So I'm just going to go where the pink is. Put my water down where the pink is. You want enough, but you don't want too much, and it's a very difficult thing if you're just starting out with watercolour. It's difficult for me to tell you how much is how much. This comes down here, like that. You will find out with experience. That's all I can say. And, you know, practice, 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 practice. So I've got some water on there. Just looking sideways at it just to check that I've got water in all the places that I want, because I want this to flood really. And the darkest point is right at the tip. I'm just going to give that a second just to sink in and think about life. Pick up that puddle that's down there, because it works best when it's sort of sinking into the paper. And then we're going to go ahead with our really bright opera rose. We're just dropping it there into that water that we've just put down, and encouraging it to go down towards the stem. And as we go down, it actually gets lighter. So we need, I'm just going to darken this up here while I've still got the full throttle on my brush. And then as we come down, we need more of this lighter, lots of water on there, the lighter shade. Just flick through to join them together, and I'm going around that, not sure what it's called, pollen carrier. So just flick through where it joins there, just so you don't get an edge. And I don't want an edge down here either, a hard edge. So I'm just going to sweep my brush along the side of it just before it dries. I don't think I've been quick enough. Oh no, I'm alright. So there we are, that's not leaving a hard edge there. I'm just going to put a little bit more paint into here. Be careful when it's like this, because things can go wrong. So tidy your edges as you go. And there we are. So that's the start of the start. And it's from here on, it's pretty much the same. It doesn't alter very much. It's putting water down, getting familiar with what you feel is comfortable, and going from there. Now when you really look at this petal of this flower, let me just have a drink. There are some lines coming in, and I'm just going to use this dry, almost dry, small round brush to just lift some off as it comes down. Leave some markings in there. It's a technique called lifting off, and you get a golden period when you can do this, and it's when your paint is not too dry and not too wet. And once again, I can't tell you exactly when that is, but you can see from the marks I'm making that I'm actually really in the golden period at the moment, because it's lifting that off beautifully. Every time that you lift some off, rinse your brush out, because otherwise you'll just be putting it back on the next bit. So there we are. That's lifting off. That's what happens. Okay, so our next bit is the one underneath here. You can't actually do two petals that are joined together because this is still damp. So our process of wetting the paper and then flooding it with paint, you'd actually flood this bit as well, and that's, you know, not what we want. So move away from the one that you've just done to another one, or one over here even, you know, whatever, just not the one right next door to it. So let's see what's going on here. Yeah, this is pink as well. I'm paying very close attention to my picture that I've got, because there are these pollen sacs in it, and that comes down like so. So there's stamens and anthers, I think is what they are, in, or a stamen or an anther, whatever. And it's damp, but it's not actually damp enough. Down to the bottom where it tails off a bit. You're better off to put too much water on than not enough, really, to be honest, because it'll sink into the paper, and you can always wait for it to dry a bit. But if you haven't got enough, the paint won't flood, which is what we're after. So that's okay, I think. So back onto our Opera Rose mixture, and just flood that area that you've just put water in, around the lines. I just want a bit more pigment in that. And as it comes down, it really does not have much pigment in it at all down here. It is pink, but just. So we'll just put the watered down version down in there. And I'm avoiding, I don't know if it's a stamen and anther, I've no idea, but there is something there which I'm avoiding, so I can have a good go at it when it's dry. A little bit more pigment up into this top bit. You can see here where we've put too much pigment on when it was wet, and it's actually pushed it to the edge and given us a hard edge. That's not the end of the world, don't worry about that, but it's just easier if it doesn't happen in the first place. And this also needs some lifting out. It might be too soon for it yet, but we'll try it and see. Yes, it just needs another second to just set itself. Let's try it now and see where we are. Yeah, that's lovely. So you want a dry brush, but damp. So these come in from the edge. They give a sort of almost frilly appearance. I'm just going to run my brush down there because it's starting to dry and I don't want a hard edge. So I'm just going to run my brush down there, feather it in because that's where the green's going to go. Okay, that's great. Excellent. Well, I wouldn't say excellent, that's not a bad attempt. Right, okay, so moving across that way, which is not the right way to do it. I'm doing it this way because I'm filming it. I'm left-handed and ordinarily I would start off here and move across. But for filming it's much easier if you can see what I'm doing. So we're starting over on this edge. That edge that we've got there that I don't want, if you just take a fairly stiff old brush, that's a very stiff old brush, and just rub into that, you'll get rid of that really hard edge that we definitely don't want. It can be like this when you start painting. Sometimes I haven't painted for a good couple of weeks because I've been poorly, and it's just getting back into it really. So I'm just taking the hard edge away, which looks awful, and we don't want it on our painting. So there we go, that's fine. And this is, it's just, actually they're a set of nail art brushes that my husband found at a charity shop, and it's perfect for the job because it's really, really stiff. So you can scrub out hard edges or anything really that you've put in that you think isn't quite right. So let's move on to this one. Right. Oh, that's my little brush. Get my big brush out. So this has just got pink at the top. As it comes down, it's got this little curly Q at the top, which is dark, and then it comes down. Not very far really, but you want to put more water on than you want your paint to spread, so you won't get a hard edge at the bottom of the pink. Hard edge, hard edge, hard edge. Hear it all the time. You'll be sick of hearing about hard edges, but they really do look awful when they happen. So we try and avoid it as best we possibly can. So I've got my water coming down to here. Actually, I only want the pink to come to about there. So I think we're all right with that. Just give this a little bit of a stir up. It's very warm in here today, so it's drying on my palette. I'll just drop that into there. And around in this little curly Q. And I just haven't got enough water to make that spread, so I'm just gonna, no, I don't want that going down the page. Just gonna add some water in front of it just to encourage it to spread down. And pay attention to your edges, tidy them up as you go. Right, so don't really want that there, so I'll just mop that up. Started a bit too much water and it started getting a bit excited with itself. Right, okay, that's good. That's not going to give us a hard edge at all. But it does stop fairly abruptly. It's quite strange, really. It is a fairly abrupt change from pink to green. So that's nice, that's a nice soft edge. Now, what we need to do is do a bit of lifting on this. It's got almost a seam down the middle. It's presumably a vein, but it's quite raised. So pay attention to where it is. And down here. Looking good. That's lifting out a lot of paint, and we're obviously at the right time. And then once again there's these tiny, I don't want a cauliflower there, please. Too much water, you need a damp brush. So I'm just lifting out these little frilly bits on the side. You need a clean brush that's damp. As dry as you can get it while it's still damp. Quite a light bit there. Well, I say paint in, but actually I'm painting out. And there's a little bit of a darker. So take this French ultramarine and add a little bit. Oh, it's dried up. So I've got this purpley, lilac-y purpley colour. And I'm just going to add a little bit down there, because there is a darker vein down there. And I don't want an edge on that on either side, and certainly don't want it at the bottom. So in the centre of that there's a lighter area which I'm going to lift out. So we've got our darker sort of vein in the centre and then this pink frilliness going on at the top. Okay, great. So the next bit to do is possibly this piece here. Now this is a slightly darker colour than the other really bright opera pink. It's bent back on itself, and it's in shadow, I would say, of this one here. So I'm just gonna mix up slightly darker colour. So take a little bit of that French ultramarine, a little bit of the opera rose, a bit more of that. So yeah, we've got this. I'll just add a bit of rose madder as well. So it's an opera pink, but it's slightly darker, which is fine. That's what we want. So there's no guidelines in here, so I'm just going to draw them in freehand to let you see where the green goes in the middle of it. So it folds back over to there, and then this comes out like like that, and down this side too, down to there. So either side of it is I've got that line in there. Is pink, and the central region is blue. Green. Hello. So put your water on. You're just painting with water. You're just trying to get a nice even coat that the paint will run into, won't puddle, won't give you hard edges, etc., etc. And if you look from the side, sometimes you can see if you've missed any bits. And if you've got it on an easel, like me, got it up at an angle, just take care that you haven't got any puddles like that lying down just at the bottom of it, because that doesn't help. So into this slightly more purple mix, and it's right round the edges. And really quite dark into there actually. I'll leave quite a bit of paint in there, and then it comes down like that. And it gets lighter actually as it gets nearer to that, the green central part. There's just a little too much paint there. Your brush will work as a sponge if it's dry. If it's dry, it'll pick up paint, which is contrary to what you'd think, but that's the way it works. Now this has got sort of ribs in it, which I'm going to put in, well, I'm going to take out, I'm going to lift them out. So in your water, clean your brush, dab it on your pad. I've got an old bit of a towel here. You see, this is not at the peak time for lifting out. That's better, that's lifting out. My pad's decided to, so clean water, dump it off on your pad, and then lift out. And you'll get these ribs that are in the flower. You don't need to press on too much. There's no need to press on too much. If it's going to lift off, it will just lift off. So there we are. It doesn't matter so much about this edge here because it's folded over, so it's quite square. Anyway, right. Rinse that brush off, and then we'll start on the, let's check that's dry, yeah. Start on the bottom section of that petal. It's easy to see now where it is since I put the line in. Just keeps things easier in your mind, where you're going, what you're doing. It's strange, but I can feel now that the art of painting is coming back to me slightly. To start off with, as I say, I hadn't painted for quite some time, and it's strange, you just lose that feeling. It's indescribable, you can't say what it feels like. Just that you might be in charge of the paint rather than the paint being in charge of you. Let's just check from the side. There's not a whole lot of water on there actually. I'm being a bit sketchy with the amount of water. It makes the job more difficult if there isn't enough water. Right, okay, must be enough surely. So back to this darker puddle of the opera pink with a little bit of ultramarine, French ultramarine in it. Just purple it up a little bit. I'm just going over the edge though, I'm not unduly worried about that. It's not critical. Right, let's form a point with this brush and get right in there, like that. That's it. Okay, I just don't want, no, I don't want that either. I was going to say I don't want a hard edge, and then I put way too much water on it. I'm just going to give that a second to think about life. Okay, where are we? There enough. Let's just add a little bit more of this around here, which is what I need. I need darkness around the edge, and since I put too much water on, I've got a very indistinct edge, so I'm just going to tidy that up because nothing looks worse. Where are we going? It's dark right down to here. So that's nice. And now we can, incidentally, never ever ever leave your brushes in your water. They're a thing of high precision, and if you leave that on its weight in the water, you're just going to destroy your brush. So just rinse out your colour and leave it on your pad if you want to. If you want it in really close to you, just leave it there. So this, I'm just going to wipe out some lines out of here, but not many. Doesn't seem to have as many as the other one. Rinse it out, dry it out, and then lift off. Sounds like Apollo, doesn't it? Lift off. There we are. That's good. That's fine. So the next one probably is this one here. Just check everything around it's dry. Yep. And it's got a bit of the same as this. The pink goes down only a little way. In fact, it only comes down to there really, where it sort of bends over. So that's where we want to put the water, and also a little bit further so we don't get a hard edge. If you were having a drinking game and you had a drink every time I said hard edge, you would be intoxicated. Actually, even if you had a coffee every time I said it, you'd be buzzing around the house like a blue bottle. So I'm just bringing that water down, further down than where I want the pink to stop. That looks good. A little spot there that I've missed. And just it's the darker one, this one actually. In fact, it's a little bit darker than the darker, so I'll just put a tiny little bit of French ultramarine in that just to give us a bit of a darker mix. Don't worry about all the details, we're not trying to get everything in now. This is kind of blocking in really. If you're not used to watercolour but you're used to acrylic, this is the equivalent of blocking in. You're just getting your main colours down. The details, they come later. But it's good, it's a good help if you can get your colours in the right place for when you start to put the details in. I'm just going to take the tiniest bit of French ultramarine and mix it That wasn't tiny, was it? Mix it through there because I want the end of this is actually purple. So I just want to add that there. That's fine. Rinse that out, and I think that's fine. I think. Let's take a damp brush and just draw it across the bottom, so you haven't got a hard edge. I'm becoming a bit sort of aware of the amount of times I say that. Let's sweep that away because that's going to be green in the fullness of. Now, what do we need to lift out of this? Well, it's got a ridge that goes right down the middle of it. So rinse your brush out, dry it off on your pad, and this goes right down the middle. And there's a sort of narrow one on each side of it, which looks good like that. And I'm just going to sweep through that purple onto the pink, just so we haven't got a hard transition line. Haha, I thought I was going to say edge. There we are. And I'm just going to take, I've just covered one of those lines. I'm just going to mark it in again. There we are. That's fine. That's good. Okay. Now there is a pink petal here, but I can't do that because I've just done this one and it's not dry. There's also a pink petal in the back of there somewhere, but I can't really do that because yet again this one's still wet. So that there's nothing more I can do to that presently. So I'll leave that as is and I'll move over to, no, don't be daft. To the other flower, this one here. Just move that over a little bit. You can still see that? Yeah. Okay. Right. Clean your brushes out. Let's decide where we're going to start. I think this one's a good one to start with because it's not interfering with any of these that allow us to crack on. Although having said that, I could do them and then I could do that. Yeah, that's the plan. Let's do this one first then. Let me just mark in where exactly this one thinks it's going. To there, I think. That's the pink in here, that's the green, this is the pink there, and this one, it hasn't got much, it's just the top that's pink. And this one, I think I missed a line off when I was tracing it. That's pink there, so that's fair enough, kind of know where we're going. Good enough. Start with this one. Same procedure. In fact, blocking in and putting this in, pretty much the same procedure forever. I mean, there might be some tiny little small pieces that you want to put in that it's really not worth doing wet on wet. You just pop them in wet on to dry. But for all these larger pieces, it's the same kind of thing throughout. Put your water on, then put your pigment on. Hook out, lift out whatever you can to give yourself a head start when you come to putting the detail on. And certainly if you want something that's left white, it's a good idea to lift it out as you put this first. I'm going to have to sort my pad out. It's having a mind of its own. Right, so that looks fine. Let's put some paint on. I went back to the bright opera rose. Just going to add a touch more colour to it, as I've been dipping in it with wet brushes, and it dilutes it a little bit. So we've got really, really bright opera rose here. Water's just dried a little bit too much on the paper. It will be alright. And as it comes down, it does get lighter. So I'll use this, the watered down variety. It comes down into there. Okay, so take care with your edges. It's easy to do them at this stage and to have to correct them. Now what do we need to lift out? We need to lift out quite a bit in here. It does get quite light in there. Your painting might be entirely different to this, in as much as you might have bought yellow ones. But even if you've bought pink and you've bought the same sort of variety as I've got, it may be entirely different. I don't want that line there. It's not helping at all, because I want that to sort of sink into the green. I'm just going to soften that edge. A sweep of water. Yeah. I'm just going to add a teeny bit more pink to there. It really is quite dark on the end. And there are some bits to lift. It's still just a bit too wet, I think. I'm just going to select a smaller brush for lifting some of these out, because they're tiny. As you come down here, there are some bits which probably need a larger, slightly larger one for. Don't worry if there's some bits that look a bit more purpley than we've got them at this stage. There's all the details to put on after. There's not much more I can do with that now, it's pretty dry. So, a bit more water on here. This one actually goes green towards the end, so I will put water over the entire petal, but bear in mind that it's actually not pink right to the end. It's got a sort of frilly edge to it. I'm putting water over the entire space. And then, let's give that a second. And then we'll drop the pink on it. It's nice. It's going on nicely. And it just tails away. Let's just wash that pigment out of that. Pick up some of this. You brush quite dry, and then, as I say, you can use it almost like a sponge. You can pick up spare paint that you don't want there. So just a bit of clean water on there, and then just drag that down through, because it's pink, but just the merest hint of it. So that's perfectly fine like that. I'm just going to soften that top edge, just a damp brush, just pull it over that edge. Okay, that's that one. Now behind here, just in there, there's a very dark section. That's dry, so I'm just going to put that in, but I'm actually going to put it in just wet on dry. There's no need to put water in there. So that's a petal, and it comes down to there. Right, so that just needs a tiny little bit of dark in there. So just using that purple that we mixed up before, I'm just going to paint that in. So as you can see, it is actually a petal, but it's right behind everything. Bring it up to that edge. Make sure it's good and dark, because it is sitting behind everything. Okay, so we'll just give that a moment to dry, and whilst that's drying, we can move up to this one. Right, let's just check I've got the drawing correct. That's the green, this is the pink section, but it does come down. I don't know what I was thinking when I was drawing this. It does come down to there, and then it goes out along there. This is quite a fat bit of stalk here. And it's behind a leaf. It's behind that leaf. There's a leaf here which comes down to there, but this is the stalk here. It comes down like that. So this has got some dark purple in it as well. So we'll just concentrate. Let me just rub some lines out here that are less than helpful. Right, okay, let's give that a go. So if your colour doesn't run when you put it in, if it doesn't flare across the paper, you haven't got enough water, assuming that's what you want to happen. And you need more. If you put it on and it just floats around, you've got too much. And really, I can't tell you the right way of working out when that is. It's a feeling, you get the feeling from practicing. I mean, this is a ridiculously difficult flower to start with. I don't know what on earth I was thinking of, to be honest with you. That comes up there as well as a purple section there. And this comes back into green. Yeah, let's start at the beginning of the alphabet with a ridiculously difficult flower. Let's put everybody off before we start. But you know, you don't have to do the whole flower. You really don't. Do just one part of it, one little flower of it, and a leaf. That would be a nice place to start. I'm just checking I've got enough water here because it's quite a large area. Right, let's see. So it's quite pink right at the top. Take care of the edges. Easier at this stage. And then it comes down. It's quite pink right up to this green actually. And then it gets a little bit darker, so we'll move into our purple. So come down here. And then it starts to go across here for this sort of bulbous, stemmy type thing. Which goes away into green. So let's just soften that edge there so I won't have a horrible transformation. I'm going to transform myself into someone who can paint. Right, okay, I like that. I might just be careful if you go back in to add pigment. You can end up with a bit of a mess. And generally, I'd say don't do it. Don't fiddle. So where all the mistakes come from, fiddling. So this is just a very watery pink. That section there. Okay, now where do we need to lift off? We need to lift off in this section that we're just fiddling with. And there. Just comes up there as well. So that is pink, but it is just pink. I just want to soften that line there so it goes up into the green. Right, what else do I need to lift off? I'm going to go to my very small brush and lift off the bits that need to come out. There's some lines. Some frilly sort of, some lines that indicate that the edge is frilled. I've left that just slightly too long. I'm really having to work at it. That's fine. I've put my finger in there, as you can see, and that hasn't helped things tremendously. I'm just going to smooth that out and have a look at it and see if there's anything that needs lifting, and there is. So just lift out the lines out of here. Lift these out if I can. I fear I've left it too long. It doesn't matter really because they're green, they're not they're not bright white. Okay, so the only pink parts of the flower that we've got left are these two here, and I'm running over now, but I think I'll do them anyway, and then we can say we've done the first layer of pink. So let's have a look at this one and see what's going on. That's a little pink bit behind there and then down here, and it's quite a thin little bit. I just aid myself with a pencil line. Comes down here. It comes around. There's a lot of stems that meet up together here that for some reason I haven't drawn, so anyway, that's fine, not to worry. So it's this thin little sliver here that needs to be pink. And the tiniest little sliver along there, and then it does go back to being pink, but a lighter version. If we can get all these petals done today, the pink parts of them anyway, that'll be excellent progress. Right, so opera pink again, drop it in. This bit here I haven't put any water on, but it's teeny tiny. Just encourage that out to the edges of the section we want. It goes very narrow there, and then rinse the colour out of your brush, and we'll just use what we've got just to pull this down into here. I'm just going to rinse my brush and just lift some of that out because it's too pink. There we are. So is there anything that needs lifting out? Well, yes, there is actually. There's a great big light here. It needs to come out. Almost bright white there on that edge. So I don't want that line of pink there either. That's fine. Yeah, lovely. And the only bit remaining is this bit, I think. Yep, okay. So same procedure. This is one of those that's really pink at the end and then just goes into green. But we'll do the same with it as we've done with the other ones and bring the water further down than we want the pink to go to. And that way then we won't get a hard transition. There we are. Put some colour onto it. Tiny little curly cue here. Checking where it goes to about there. Okay, so I need to just lift some of that out. I don't really want it there either, thank you. So start at the middle and just pull it out like that, and then you can use either a piece of kitchen towel or your brush or whatever to just pick up that excess. That's fine. So that's pretty much our pinks put in. everything else that's left is green. So varying shades of green. We'll go through those when we start looking at it, because the leaves, some of the leaves have almost got a blue tinge to them, but the bits that are in the flowers are very, very bright, lovely, a lovely green. I'm just checking that I've got everything put in here. Yeah, I think so. Okay, so that's us. I'm looking at the camera, but you can't see me. That's us pretty much done with the pinks. Excuse me. Some of it will need darkening, some of it will need details on. That's further down the line. Let's put the greens on as much as we can. Possibly not the big leaves, but the next thing to do is put the greens on the flowers, so we've actually got some flowers. So we're painting flowers. Hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you are following on as best you can. As I say, even if you're just doing a small part of it, that's great. You don't need to go do the whole kerfuffle. So I'll see you again very soon with part 2. Thanks for watching. Bye.